Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the City of Winston-Salem Affordable Housing Development Process Information System. Uh, Information session. I'm sorry. My name is Chantel McClam. I am the Neighborhood Services Director. I am also joined behind the scenes by my Assistant Neighborhood Services Director, Samuel Hunter. He is going to be taking your questions in the chat box. This will be, all participants will be muted for this. If you have any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat box. And at the end of the information session, I will be answering those questions live. He'll read those questions to me and we will answer those live. So we have about a 20-minute presentation and we're going to leave about an hour for questions and answers. And so the session will end right at 4:30. So in the interest of time, I will go ahead and jump into it and share my screen. And so today, what we are going to focus on in this meeting is discussing the affordable housing development process that is recommended, that is up for recommendation with the City Council right now, that we would like to implement in the next several weeks. So the meeting is going to focus on affordable housing development process, the whys, the community impact, the intended community impact. We're going to do a process overview of the two different processes that we will be implementing. We'll talk through the annual schedule, our marketing strategy, and then we will take questions. So why was it important for the City of Winston-Salem to establish a process? As you all know, affordable housing shortages is not just an issue for the City of Winston-Salem, but it's nationwide. So our goal with this process was to increase the supply of high quality, affordable rental and owner-occupied housing. The key there is high quality. We want affordable housing, but we also want housing that will last, that will stand the test of time. We do not want years from now, 10 years from now, that we have housing that was not built to standard and is now giving us issues. And so the purpose is to make sure that we are properly vetting the proposals and the plans that come through to us and ensure that we are obtaining developers that are going to build high quality construction. And this can be new construction, rehab and preservation, or conversion of such things as offices, warehouse spaces in order to build affordable housing. Secondly, we wanted to maximize the utilization of the city-owned land and dwellings that we already have. So this means, of course, having innovative housing developments, which could include tiny homes. This also means creating inclusive communities, such as mixed income and mixed use communities, or communities that will with increased density, such as duplexes and triplexes. The third and really most important reason that we wanted to create a process was to ensure that we were going to be implementing an equitable, transparent, and conventional process, meaning we wanted a process that was going to be fair, that was going to be transparent and open to all those interested in developing affordable housing, and conventional, something that was going to be predictable. And therefore, we have an annual application calendar that is set, that we'll talk about a little bit later, that is set for both the LIHTC process and the city-owned land / funding assistance process that we would like to put into place. We're going to be extremely intentional about our marketing efforts when we are putting out our notice of funding opportunities and our RFPs, ensuring that transparency. We included an improved scoring matrix, in this process, including quantitative measures such as a location score. And we also will have a diverse evaluation team utilizing staff with subject matter experts from varying departments that would be able to give insight on the proposals that are being submitted to the City of Winston-Salem. Another thing that we're going to be doing different with this process is we're going to provide developer training and information sessions. So once the process is approved, we're going to first begin marketing these information and training sessions that will take a deeper dive into our process. Today's sessions basically is going to be a high-level overview. If you would like that deeper dive, then I would recommend that you sign up for one of those developer training sessions that we intend to do as soon as the process is approved. And lastly, we wanted to maximize the utilization of the current funding that we have. We do not have a lot of funding left over. We have approximately $10 million that we will be able to spend over the next 2 years. And so therefore, $5 million each year. We would have $4 million allocated towards the LIHTC or low income housing tax credit process. And then we would have $1 million dedicated towards the city-owned land funding process. So what is the intended community impact? Of course, I know that you all have probably witnessed that our homeless community has grown and continues to grow. And therefore, we have a lot of folks that are living in encampments, which create tent cities. It creates increased litter all over town. And so in order to provide that support, we need housing. Not only do we need affordable housing, but we also need to increase and improve our temporary housing, such as permanent supportive housing, which could be done via multifamily construction with supportive services added to that. We also want to ensure that in that affordable housing options that we are ensuring that we address those at that 30 to 80% average median income as it relates to rental housing and also as it relates to affordable home ownership. Another impact that we're looking is to boost the local economy, to attract businesses and jobs. Better, more improved communities, happy citizens and residents can attract new businesses to come here, which promotes more jobs and improve area property values. So I'd like to spend a little more time on this screen. This is the actual breakdown of our 2 processes. We have the first process, which is it'll be referred to sometimes as LIHTC, which means low income housing tax credit process. So these are going to be your larger scale multifamily, typically multifamily developments that are seeking gap financing. These projects could average anywhere between $15 and $20 million, and the average units produced are around 60 units. And so therefore, developers, contractors, they do come with what they call a capital stack, meaning they have 4 or 5 different areas that they are seeking to obtain funding from in order to produce the low income housing. As it relates to the city-owned lots and the funding assistance process, this is going to be your smaller scale, single-family lots, and the funding requests that we typically get will be either for lots to be conveyed in order for the developer to develop on, or gap financing. They come with their own land or they've purchased a parcel of land and they're looking for gap financing in order to develop on. And sometimes with these requests, we could get requests for lots and gap financing. However, additional funding is typically needed in these cases. So developers, contractors typically either have bank loans, private investments, or using their own equity in order to have a successful projects. These projects typically cost around $750,000 to $2 million, and the average units produced in this area is typically 5 to 10 units. So not a lot of units are produced from the the smaller scale development. And as we go along, if questions pop up, please enter them into the chat as I'm going through the presentation. And therefore, by the time we get to the end, we'll be able to go right into our questions and answer session. So here's the predictability. This is what our annual schedule will typically look like. Because we have missed that window for the city-owned lots, that August-September window in which we will typically put out an RFP, a request for proposals, then we're going to actually put out the LIHTC notice of funding opportunity and the city-owned lots / funding request for proposal at the same time. So once the process is approved, then we will immediately start marketing our developer training information sessions. And then after those sessions are held and we've taken that deeper dive into the process, into the scoring, then we will actually start heavily marketing the notice of funding opportunity and the request for proposal. So typically these will go out in November, and the applications will be due in January. And when we get on our regular schedule for the city-owned lots and the funding, this process will typically open up in June and it will close in August. But as I said previously, we're going to send them both out at the end. Well, we'll be marketing our developer information sessions at the end of November. We will actually start marketing the notice of funding opportunity and the request for proposals at the beginning of December. So we plan to market this process very heavily. We're going to use every avenue that we can to ensure that everyone is aware that the process is open, that we're accepting application, and the funding is available. So we are now creating a database of developers, small developers, large developers, faith-based, nonprofit, whoever is interested in developing affordable housing. We are creating a database, and so we will do direct email advertisement. Once we put these out, we'll also advertise in the newspaper. You will see us running advertisements on electronic billboards. We'll also do radio, of course, social media, but we'll also be advertising on our electronic bus ad advertising windows. This is the contact information for myself and for my assistant director, Samuel Hunter. If there are any questions, we can go ahead and start answering those now.
Hey, Chantel. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you.
Okay, so we have one question in the chat. The question is there a listing of available city-owned properties available for development?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes. There's a list of city-owned properties. It will be a link on our page when we post the process and we open the notice of funding opportunity. I think the link is out there now, but we will also make sure that it's the most current link and most up to date when we post the notice of funding opportunity and the RFP.
Thank you. That's the only one we have right now. I have a question that some people are probably wondering. What was proposed to the city council? Is there a minimum city-owned lot request required?
Originally, what was proposed to the city council was there was going to be a minimum of 3 lots when it comes to the city-owned lot funding RFP. And so that has been changed slightly to if you are looking to develop on a lot and you are seeking to subdivide or increase the density of that lot, meaning you're looking to develop a duplex or a triplex, something of that nature, or subdivide, then it will not require the 3 lot minimum.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat. What is the total funding for the program? They did not specify which program they're referring to, but I guess you could break it down on one of like the previous slide about what the breakdown is per program.
Okay, so the total funding that we have for the next 2 years will be $5 million per year. And so that 5 million is going to be broken down, 4 million to go towards those who have applied for low income housing tax credits, and then 1 million will go towards the city owned lots, gap financing requests for proposals that we submit. We're going to use that same concept for the following year. And then in 2026, hopefully there will be a new recommendation on where the funding will come from as it relates to affordable housing development.
Thank you. We have this one's more of a recommendation or a request. The request is in the future plan developer training, it would be helpful to have an overview of some sample projects in the past so we can envision what is possible.
That's a great idea, and that's what we intend to do. When we take that deeper dive, we will have some examples that we include in those developer training information sessions that will show, one, the required documents that we need in order to ensure that your proposal is, one, responsive, and then two, examples of projects that were successful in actually obtaining funding from the city.
Thank you. We have another question. What is the status of the Housing Trust Fund?
The Housing Trust Fund is in progress right now. So in other words, there are meetings taking place, conversations, outreach to private institutions. So they are actively working, top city management is actively working to ensure that the Housing Trust Fund is actually put in place and implemented. It's right now in its beginning phases. And as I stated, they're doing that outreach. They're doing those collaborative meetings to get the private institutions also in this collaboration to create affordable housing.
Thank you. The next one that we have is, can you speak on the scoring process for proposals received and the percentage of affordable units required for eligible projects?
The scoring process is something that we don't want to, it's so intricate and so detailed that we will go through it in those developer information sessions. We'll go into it in more detail. This session, we don't want to cover that too deeply. We just wanted to make sure that the communication as it relates to this process, why the process was necessary, why we're looking to implement the process. We want to make sure that we answer any questions as it relates to those during this meeting. But if you want to, like I said, do that deeper dive, sign up for one of those meetings and we will go step by step through that scoring matrix and what is needed and what is required for you to receive points in each one of those categories.
All right. The next one is this only for experienced developers?
No, this is not only for experienced developers. We are looking for all those who are interested in establishing or developing affordable housing in the city of Winston-Salem. We're hopeful that our information training sessions can give you what you need in order to submit a responsive proposal. However, keep in mind, we do want to ensure that we are getting high quality housing development. We do not, even when you're just starting out, if you're working with tenured contractors, then that will make a difference. But we want to ensure that the product is high quality.
Great answer. There's another question that you really did a great segue into, talking about a responsive RFP and collaboration with experienced contractors. The question is, can you please outline the process for submitting an RFP?
Well, what we'll do when we mark it, the RFP is going to say in detail exactly what is needed, what your deadlines are. We'll actually have a window for questions. If when you're reading through that RFP and there's something that you don't understand, we're going to leave open a window for questions to be emailed to myself or Samuel Hunter, and we would be able to get back in contact with you. Once that window closes, however, then you will be responsible for ensuring that all of the documents that are needed are submitted to us and they're in a timely manner. But like I said, we will take that deeper dive to say, hey, these are the pieces that are going to be needed for that smaller scale, and these are the pieces that are going to be needed for those larger LIHTC projects. But I promise that we will make sure that we're walking you through what those processes look like. We're going to be available to answer your questions, and we will be responsive to ensure that you get your answers prompt enough to be able to submit a responsive proposal.
Great response. Next question is, what is the city's definition of affordable housing when it comes to price point?
As it relates to multifamily or single family housing? I would tell you that our guidelines, when it relates to multifamily, we look at what HUD tells us is the affordable range. HUD puts out a chart each year, which will communicate the salary range and the rent amounts that can be charged according to your salary range. And so what we typically do, if we give funding, if we give gap financing towards a project, we're going to require that the developer allots so many units for us for affordability, and it's going to be according to that range that HUD gives us. HUD also states that single family, I think affordable for single family is a maximum of $320,000. I know you're going to say that that is expensive. I also think that that is expensive, but that is the maximum. That's not the goal. That's just the maximum on what they will allow you to charge for affordable single family.
Great answer. Great answer. The next question is, when applying for funds for new construction, will individuals only qualify if the entire project is affordable, or can it be a portion of the project to be affordable? And if yes, what is the percentage? So essentially the question is mixed income developments allowable?
Yes, mixed income developments are allowable. It depends on the financing that's being asked for in that process. And like I said previously, we would be looking for a certain amount of units to be allotted for affordability. I'm not sure what that percentage is, but that's a question that I can obtain the information and answer. I did fail to say that we will be having an in-person session tomorrow at Haynes Hosiery here in Winston-Salem from 5:30 to 7. So any of the questions that I may not be able to answer on this webinar, I'll be able to answer it tomorrow in that session.
Next question is, the $2 billion that you referenced in the presentation, isn't it planned for the Housing Trust Fund?
No, the $2 million that I referenced in the presentations that I made to the general, I assume that they're questioning the $2 million I raised at the general government committee meeting and the city council meeting. That $2 million was actually put in a construction loan program that never was implemented, and it was going to be like a revolving loan program. We give you a loan, the funds from your payments on that loan will go back into this program in order to replenish the program. However, we realized that there had been no applications for that funding, and it has been a year now. There have been no applications for that funding, and if we truly want to make an impact as it relates to production of affordable housing in the next couple years. We need that funding in this process. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the $10 million that's being recommended to be split over 2 years. We would only have 8. And so where would that leave the process, and what's going to suffer in that? Since from the slide that I showed you all where it would show how many units that we are able to obtain. Let me go back to that slide. This slide here. So if we were to not utilize that $2 million, what will end up probably suffering is the amount of funding that we would be able to add towards the city-owned lots funding assistance process. Because if we're trying to increase the affordable housing stock, we've got to go with the area that's going to produce the most stock. And so that's going to be the low-income housing tax credit process. And so in order to ensure that we are addressing both areas and we are bringing both single family homes, tiny homes, duplexes, and multifamily to the city of Winston-Salem to address our housing issues, our housing concerns, then we need that funding now.
Another question is, how can we find the applications for the construction program?
The application is no longer available. It would have been on the site, but it's no longer available because the program is not actively running. That program also needs to be revisited. The construction loan program has been around since 1997. So this is not a new program to the city. It's been around a long time. It's just another one of those programs that needs to be reviewed, and the process itself probably needs to be brought up to date. And so that's just something that after this process is implemented, that's something that we can look at, see where the construction loan program stands, see how much funding we have currently in that program in order to ensure that it continues to be utilized.
Still waiting on a couple more questions to come in, and if anyone has any. But just if you wouldn't mind, just sharing just a little bit. There's not much of a difference between the program, how it was originally designed in the 90s, and most recently to how staff is proposing to use the funds now. It's still going to go back to developers, nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations to utilize those funds. Isn't that correct?
That's absolutely correct, Samuel. What we are proposing in our city-owned lots funding assistance process is just the same as the construction loan program. This just clearly defines a process, and it's not looking at it as a revolving loan program where we are seeking to continue to be able to operate that program by utilizing funds or loan payments that are coming into the program. And it does take a little bit of time. I apologize. There's a little bit of a delay when it comes to when you enter your question and when we actually receive it. And so we're going to just wait a few minutes to see if there are any other questions. Like I said, here's below you on the screen, you'll see my contact information, my assistant director's contact information. We will be able to answer any questions that you have about the program. We will be actively working to implement the program. We will also take a big part in the developer information training sessions for this program.
We have another question in the chat just popped in. When is this process anticipated to be approved by City Council?
It is on the agenda for Monday, November 18th. And during that meeting, it has to be either approved or denied. And so we are waiting until that date to see what happens. If approved, we will immediately, the next day, begin marketing for those training sessions.
Another question, where can we find this presentation deck for following this session?
This, you will be able to, you could actually log back on to YouTube to see the video, and the presentation is on that as well. Once we get up and running, we'll also post it on the Housing Development webpage. Anything that we do, any presentations, any trainings or recordings, we're going to try to ensure that we post it on the Housing Development webpage off of the city's main page, in order for you to go back and reference it again or share it with folks that couldn't make it to the meeting.
Chantel, I have a question I think everyone could maybe benefit from. You know, obviously there was some direction to housing development staff at that time to really review the process. We don't have to go into detail of everything that we did, but if you wouldn't mind just sharing some context with the public on, what went into developing this process. Did staff reach out to peer cities? Did they analyze different things? Did they review certain documents to help develop this to make it easier for the public to understand how to get affordable housing assistance?
Sure, absolutely. So when the directive was given back in May to take a step back and actually develop a process where we would market these notices, the notice of funding opportunities, that we would have a evaluation system that was fair, and that we would market to where everyone interested would know about it. So immediately staff started speaking with peer cities, those that we knew that were working on affordable housing themselves. And we found that most had a process in place already. Most had funding that they had obtained through issuing bond referendums, which typically that's how you get enough funding to provide gap financing for affordable housing. We just started looking at their processes. We started speaking with developers, contractors, to ensure that we were not going to be, that our process wouldn't be a deterrent, or it would not create barriers because it was too difficult to understand, or we weren't providing enough information, or we weren't marketing, widely enough. And so we began to look at processes, talk with our peers, talk with contractors. We started working with Map for Sife to try to determine how we could best put in a measure that would say, hey, if you are looking to develop a community, a multifamily community, how close are you to the amenities and the necessities that are needed for those individuals that's going to move into that community? So how close are you to transportation, to a bus stop? How close are you to grocery stores, schools? Is there already water sewer connection on the property to where you're trying to develop? So we took into account all of these things when it comes to the development quality score that is in our matrix, to ensure that we are being fair and that affordable housing is going to be built all over the city of Winston-Salem, not just in particular wards, but we want affordable housing in all areas.
Great response. Thank you. Sorry to just kind of throw that out at you, but I think everyone could appreciate that response. We do have a couple more questions in the chat. Question is, should we email and confirm our interest in the trainings and begin the process of submitting an RFP?
If you would like to go ahead and email us your contact information, we can add you to that developer database that we are building. So we can go ahead and add you to that list. And so when we begin to send out those direct email advertisements, you would get an advertisement. And at that point, you can decide whether or not you want to sign up for one of those information sessions or not. But at least you would have received the communication to let you know when those are going to be scheduled.
And then the back end of that question was, should they begin the process of submitting an RFP?
No, do not begin any process because when we put out those two documents, that notice of funding opportunity and the request for proposal, the RFP, there are going to be details in there that you're going to need in order to develop a responsive proposal. So I wouldn't recommend you start anything now. If you know, like I said, the list of city-owned properties is out on the website now. So if you wanted to look at that list and actually go and look at some sites, that's fine to do. But I would not work on any of the actual documents that you're going to submit to us until after we put those training sessions out and we give you the information that you need.
Just that we have a couple more questions, but just to add to that, do you
Okay.
think it may be appropriate for parties to, they may not know what the RFP looks like, but to almost establish their development team or have an idea of who they're going to bring to the table when they submit something?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to make a difference in your response to us. If you're showing in there, like in the question where someone asked if this was for experienced developers or new developers, what's going to make a difference in a new developer's response is the collaboration with other contractors, developers, skilled staff. What does that, if you could include all of those things and all of those collaborations in your proposal to show that you are prepared to produce a quality product, that's going to help your proposal and the scoring.
Thank you. This one is not a question, it's just a supportive comment. The citizen says, I'm excited to see this getting kicked off. This will address a great need in the city.
Thank you so much. We truly appreciate that. I am born and raised in the city of Winston-Salem, and so this is extremely important to me as well. I've worked for the city 24 years, but I've lived here almost 50. And so to see the community developed and just being beautiful and provide enough housing and providing that homeless support is just going to be a great thing. So I'm excited about it as well. And I'm looking forward to us putting this in place.
Thank you. We have a few more questions trickling in, some great questions. This first one is, will down payment assistance be provided as part of the program for single-family home purchases?
So the city already provides down payment assistance. We actually collaborate with Forsyth County. It does not come through us, but we provide grant funding to Forsyth County, who handles that program for us. And so, yes, down payment assistance can be provided. You would just need to go through Forsyth County in order to obtain what information is needed in order to receive that down payment assistance.
Thank you. The next question is, and a lot of people may be questioning this one. Forgive me, I'm not familiar with city policies and the language. However, I know new construction. So I assume this citizen is referring to maybe what does an RFP stand for? What does LIHTC stand for? Those acronyms.
Okay, so LIHTC is low income housing tax credits, and RFP is just a request for proposal. And so, and then the other acronym that was used was NOFO, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity. So anytime we use any type of acronym, whether it's in our documents or if we're saying it, we'll make sure that either the acronym is in parentheses or what it means is in parentheses so that there's a clear understanding.
Thank you. The next question is, as it relates to purchasing the built homes, what is the target area median income for families or individuals wishing to become a homeowner?
Well, that's going to vary because, like I said, we've got a chart. And so it's going to vary as it relates to the income level, the number of bedrooms. Um, it's going to depend. It's going to depend. We can always provide that chart, like I said, on our site. HUD provides it to us every year, the updated spreadsheet to let us know what incomes and what is considered to be between that 30% and 80% average median income.
Great response. And yeah, like you said, it depends on bedrooms and it depends on the household size. So a family of four will have a different one than a family of two. So it depends on the family size. The next question is, can you elaborate on the gap funding?
So gap financing is just as it sounds, meaning you have obtained funding you want to develop, whether that's single family or multifamily. You want to develop a product and you have some funding, but you are lacking. And so, say you have a $20 million project that you are trying to develop and you got $5 million in low income tax credit. You've got a bank loan of $10 million. You've got your own equity in it of say 4 million, and you've got a $1 million gap. And so your proposal to us is these are the funding sources that I have put in place, and I need $1 million from the city in order to make this project happen.
That's a great example. We have another question that we don't typically get asked as much as we would like to sometimes, but can a nonprofit organization use this program to build transitional housing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need transitional housing. We need permanent supportive housing. That's what's truly going to make an impact as it relates to homelessness support. So absolutely, we need that type of housing. And yes, proposals can be submitted for that purpose as well.
All right. The next one that we have is, what is the budget for down payment assistance? So they're probably asking, what is the maximum amount of assistance that a homeowner or a
Okay.
potential homeowner can receive?
Well, right now, from the city-county collaboration, it's $20,000. There are some other agencies that provide funding. Those resources, North Carolina Housing Finance provides funding. There's other different agencies, financial pathways, and so there's opportunities to get funding if needed from varying resources in order to purchase a home. But for right now, what I can tell you is our maximum from the city county collaboration is $20,000.
Another question that we have, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at the developer trainings, but we'll ask it now. Will the city require deed restrictions? For example, will the single family homes sold be required to be owner occupied at all times?
Yeah, there will be deed restrictions. I cannot tell you that owner occupied, the deed restriction is going to be put on the property, and there will be requirements on when that house is sold, it has to remain affordable during a time frame. And in order for it to be put in the hands of somebody who can be declared as in that AMI range, of affordable, they wouldn't necessarily be a landlord, is how I'm going to put that.
Great response. Great response, because there's a number of different things that will be listed on the deed restriction. So great response. Next question. Will any different or additional information be shared tomorrow? Should we attend that session as well?
That we will provide the same presentation tomorrow. There may be different questions asked by those in the audience. However, the information that I will provide tomorrow is the same information that I provided this afternoon on the webinar.
Thank you. Next question we have is, can you provide an example of terms on the funds? So is there a potentially a shot clock after they execute the purchase and development agreement? Is there some things like that?
Right. And I don't want to go too deep into terms because, those things will be worked out amongst attorneys. But there is a shot clock from the time that we communicate that you are being awarded the gap financing, the city-owned lot, whatever it may be. You have a year to ensure that the agreement has been put in place. But then there's a 2-year there's a 2-year window in which you have to develop what you communicated in your scope of work and your proposal that will be developed.
That's a good high-level response. We still have some time, so if anyone wants to drop any additional questions in the chat, feel free to do so.
And as I stated before, if there's a question that comes up after the meeting has ended, just make sure that you take down our contact information, reach out to myself or Sam or both of us. You can put us both on the email. If I don't respond, he'll respond. But we can certainly get those questions answered. Feel free if you want to come out tomorrow to attend the in-person session. Like I stated, I'm going to provide the exact same information. We'll probably get various or closely related questions that we got on this afternoon, but that would be the only difference in what is presented in the information tomorrow. Remember that the video recording of this information session and which includes the presentation will be available on the city's YouTube page shortly after the meeting has ended. If there are no other questions, Sam, popping in, then we will go ahead and close the webinar. I want to thank you all so much for your interest in the city's affordable housing development process. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your questions. If you have any additional, reach out and we will respond as soon as we can. I hope you all have a great evening.